Ask a movie fan about Pierce Brosnan.
James Bond.
Pierce Brosnan plays James Bond so naturally that it seems he was assigned the role at birth.
As a boy in 1964, the first one I ever saw was Sean in Goldfinger.
But the man who plays the spy with the license to kill has lived a life more remarkable than any Bond plotline.
He is someone whom life has carved on like a piece of stone.
In the next hour, we will profile the long and winding career of actor Pierce Brosnan. You'll meet the poor Irish kid who fought to survive loneliness, street gangs, and volatile priests.
Seeing some fella yank a little lad by the ear and kick him up against a door.
You'll learn about the rebellious teen who found sanctuary in performing.
I learned how to fire eat, and it came in useful. And then there was a circus across the street, and they were looking for clowns, and we went over there.
You'll follow the budding actor through his happy marriage to Bond girl Cassandra Harris, and its tragic ending.
He was there right to the last second, and I think a testament to his strength, his character, and his spirituality.
And you'll get to know the Hollywood newcomer who won and then lost the coveted role of James Bond before finally winning it back.
I don't know how he would have done James Bond then. I know how he does it now, and I think nobody's been better.
From Remington Steele.
He's a character actor in a really good-looking man's body.
To 007.
Pierce? Yeah, he's okay.
And beyond.
Make no bones about it, he is a big star.
Women go nuts for him. It's an amazing thing to do. And just women going, he's so handsome. What about me?
This is Pierce Brosnan, Celebrity Profile. On August 16, 1952, in the town of Navan in Southern Ireland, May and Tom Brosnan, a pair of passionate newlyweds, conceived their only child on their wedding night. 9 months later, on May 16, 1953, Pierce Brosnan came into the world, but his father wasn't there for him.
Never knew him. Never knew him. Tom Brosnan went out the back door when I was born.
May and her infant Pierce were left behind to face poverty and humiliation.
Great shame comes upon the family, the name, and all of that nonsense.
To support her child, May moved to London to become a nurse. Pierce was left behind with relatives.
The town was across the river, and I lived with the grandparents. And then finally I moved across the river to live with a great woman called Eileen Riley up in St. Fenian's Terrace. Eileen had a lodging house, and that's where I spent the last days of my childhood in Ireland. And that was magical, because I suddenly was with lots of kids, you know, and the terrace was a great place to live on.
Tony Toto Maguna was one of Pierce's childhood friends.
Well, I'm sure, Pierce, if you see this, that you'll remember these. We used to make these as kids. I made this just for my son about 2 months ago.
So I knew how to make great bow and arrows, and I knew how to make great spears, and I knew how to make camps.
We could probably have a gang of maybe 10 or 12 kids. We used the old St. Michael's Castle, which he'd remember well too. And we played at the moat, and it was a great place because it was a high hill.
So when I was with Eileen and living in St. Fenian's Terrace with all these lads, I had a certain experience.
The neighborhood was his playground, but for Pierce, school was hell on earth. The strict Catholic priests left a lasting impression.
Being a little boy and standing there and saying your Our Father and seeing some fella, you know, yank a little lad by the ear and kick him up against a door, or take out the old paddy bat and beat your hands to kind of till they're red, you know. I never got it. I never got it. They were sadists, I'm sorry to say.
To cope with daily, painful punishments, Pierce turned inward.
I didn't have the stability of a home life, you know. I floated around. You have to survive, and you begin to live in your own imagination.
Ironically, the church gave Pierce his first opportunity to appear before a crowd.
And I suppose the first performance was at church, being an altar boy. Because the church in the town of Navan that I grew up in was a very theatrical church. It was very big. And of course the Catholic Mass is an event unto itself.
At the age of 10, just as he was coming to terms with life in Ireland, Pierce was packed off to London to reunite with his mother.
I had an aspirin bottle in this hand, which was full of holy water, and I had the rosary beads in this hand, and my suitcase, and a crew cut, you know. And the uncle took me out to the airport. We went to the bar, and he left me in the company of a priest. Said, don't worry now, Phil. I'll take care of the little fella. And we got to London, and he buggered off and left me. I was wandering around the airport, and I finally found my mother, and it was bliss. It was heaven.
May Brosnan had a new career as a nurse and a new man in her life, Bill Carmichael. Bill became a father figure to Pierce. In his new neighborhood of Putney, however, Pierce was an outsider.
It was great, and then it was like having to survive all over again, because you're a Paddy, you're a Mick. I developed a Cockney accent, just to survive. You end up fighting, and fighting is kind of pretty painful, and it's a lot of nonsense, and didn't like that too much, so you go to humor. You go to laughter, at least I did in my case. But the schooling for me was just, I was a dreamer.
The movies provided the dreamer with an outlet.
The first film I saw was Goldfinger, and it was sheer delight. It was fantasy. It was, you know, then Clint Eastwood came along with his movies, Steve McQueen.
In 1968, the streetwise Pierce dropped out of school.
I had to survive. Art was something which I loved and which I was good at, and so I left when I was about 15 and found this little studio in Putney.
Photographer Colin Kerwood worked with Pierce at the Ravenna Photo Studio, where a coworker introduced them to a new experience.
Great place for young people, and there were girls there and everything. It was great. So we all got dragged off to this place, me and Pierce, and so we turned up here in the Oval House.
The Oval House was an avant-garde theater group in the south of London.
And I went in, and I suddenly felt at home. I was in the company of people who I could identify with. I'd found a tribe. I'd found people that made sense. So suddenly this place called the Oval House was sanctuary. It was like brilliant.